Okay, I think we're actually going to get started, and as people join, they'll catch up with us. So, welcome everybody. Um, Bear with me. I have had a sick 4-year-old, a 12-year-old dog with surgery, and a husband out of town for work. So, this has not been my most effective week, and I'm leaving for Kenya on Saturday. So, we'll navigate this best we can. So I just got back from Ethiopia in September with our client Travel Ethiopia. They're amazing. This was my third trip to Ethiopia, and I do have to say that I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite countries. It's so special. It's so different from other destinations in Africa. And I really think with the history and the culture, it's different from anywhere else in the world. I haven't been to Jordan or the Middle East, but a couple people I've traveled with before to Ethiopia kind of paralleled it to some of those regions. So it's very interesting. If you have questions, you can type them in as we go. I may answer them as I'm talking, or I might wait until the end. So I have a little questions tab that I can see. So don't worry about that. Just type them in. All right, so there's Africa. I think you guys have probably all been seeing a lot of maps of Africa recently, given the whole Ebola issue. And I do want to mention that on arrival in Ethiopia, they are testing fevers and temperatures for the flights that arrive within Africa, so that's good. So just some information I'll run through. I won't go through all of this. You guys can read it, and this will also be on our website after the fact. But Ethiopia is the second most populated country in Africa after Nigeria. There are so many people in this country. It's crazy. There are just people everywhere. It's about twice the size of Texas, so it is a large country, and it's really, really linguistically diverse. It's fascinating. I mean, there are so many languages and so many dialects, so many different tribes and groups. It's really, really beautiful mix of people. I have to say the Ethiopians are stunning. And they're really, really excited to have travelers there. Addis is the arrival city, which is the capital. The airport code is ADD. The airport is right adjacent to downtown. So there are some hotels that we use that are literally 5 minutes from the airport. The main core of the downtown is a bit further, and traffic can be pretty intense. So transfer times within Addis do vary quite a bit. Visas can be purchased on arrival by most nationalities, Americans, Canadians, South Africans, $20 US, nice, crisp, clean bill, and they do put a visa in the passport, so a blank visa page is required. Yellow fever certificate is required, although I've never had mine checked, but if you're coming from a yellow fever country like Kenya, your clients will need it. The currency is the Ethiopian birr. It's about 20 to 1. And cash is really the way to go in Ethiopia. Very few places will accept a credit card. The big hotels in Addis will, if their credit card machines are working on any given day. So don't bet on that. There are limited ATMs in Addis, and a couple places we actually had access to a cash machine, which you could put dollars in and get birr out, which was awesome. The one that I used was in Bahir Dar at Lake Tana, so that worked really well. So there are some of those. Do not have your clients bring traveler's checks. They won't be accepted. Just a few health concerns. Yes, technically speaking, they do need their yellow fever card to get into the country if they're coming from a yellow fever country. If your travelers are traveling only in the highlands, the north, the altitude's really high, so technically speaking, it's incredibly incredibly low risk for malaria. Once you hit the Rift Valley, Lake Lungano and south, that's where there is malaria, and the Omo Valley is definitely a malarial region. The weather in Ethiopia is really variable. It's just north of the equator. Kenya's to the south where the equator runs through. But I think the biggest factor with the weather is the elevation and the topography. I have a really cool elevation map I'll show you in a second, but it's not really traditional East African rain patterns. So October to May is the dry season. It's really mild, beautiful temperatures, kind of in the 80s. However, the Omo Valley can be hot. 105 to me is pretty hot. I'm definitely a Seattleite. Then June to September is the rainy season. I was there in September, mid-September. The rains were ending. It was absolutely beautiful. That said, it could rain through September, so kind of October, November, December are really, really beautiful times. It's green, it's really lush. This picture on the page here I took just in September, so you can see it's beautiful. So that's a nice time to be there. Mescal is in September, and they have a big festival. It's the Ethiopian New Year because Ethiopia is on the Julian calendar, so they're 7 years behind us. Which was kind of cool. I was there for the 2007 New Year, which is a really strange thing. And beautiful yellow wildflowers and daisies blooming everywhere, so it's a nice time to be there. The heavy rains in the Omo Valley are consistent with typical East African rain patterns, and April and May, it can become impassable. The roads are really bad in the Omo. So that's not a good time to go down there. However, that is a good time to be in the north. And then October, November is the short rains in the Omo Valley. Also not great, but we can do it. Something to bear in mind for your clients, the Bali Mountains and the Simiens Mountains are really, really high altitude. I mean, we're talking between 10,000 and 15,000 feet. So it is really cold at night. I had mittens, a wool hat, a thermal, a fleece, a jacket, and I was still really cold. And then on the opposite, the Danakil Depression can hit up to 120 degrees. So it's quite variable. This is just an altitude map of Ethiopia. It's really interesting. You can see how high this country is, and actually the disparity between elevations is pretty significant. The darkest green is the lowest, and the brightest, darkest red is the highest. So if you look in this area where the Bali Mountains are and the Simiens Mountains, you're looking at between 3,000 and 4,500 meters, so between 10 and 15,000 feet. In the Bali Mountains, there is, according to the Ethiopians, there is the highest all-weather road in Africa, highest all-weather pass that runs at about 13,000, 12,000 feet. We went over in September, and man, you can feel the altitude. It is high. So that's something to bear in mind. For travelers, it's a pretty extreme destination that way. So just a few things. Ethiopia is definitely a developing tourism destination. The Ethiopians are really, really friendly. They're eager to provide good service, but these are a few things that I've noticed when traveling there. Traffic can be horrible, awful, like 2 hours to go 10-kilometer type traffic. So they need to be prepared for really unpredictable traffic conditions, especially in Addis. Out in the country, there's not traffic. But out in the country, there are pedestrians, cows, goats, sheep, birds, bicycles, donkey carts, everything possible on the roads. All of the vehicles have seat belts. They should wear them. It is definitely an intense destination for driving. In Lalibela, I always recommend that your travelers bring extra pairs of socks because you cannot wear shoes in the churches. And I just always take airline socks, put them over my regular socks, and then when you're done, leave them behind and someone will pick them up and reuse them. I already kind of mentioned this, but the Bali Mountains and Simiens get really cold. It was hailing and 4 degrees Celsius when we were in the Bali Mountains. So they need to be prepared for that kind of climate. And it's really frustrating because usually that's a very small portion of your travelers' trips, but they should be prepared with appropriate gear. The Omo Valley is really still very much a developing destination. And I personally struggle a little bit with the Omo Valley from a tourism standpoint because they are working on sustainable cultural tourism there, but I mean, this is early days. So for travelers who have had really positive experiences, say like in Namibia with the Himba or in Kenya with the Samburu, it's really different. So it's not terribly interactive. There are definitely some experiences that are, but for travelers who really want to engage, it's getting there. And so that's something that the people need to be aware of, I think. Kind of surprised me when I was there last. So why Ethiopia? It's definitely one of Africa's most culturally and topographically diverse countries. It is a top birding destination. The endemic wildlife is absolutely spectacular. It is not a really saturated wildlife destination. This is not Botswana. This is not Zambia. It's not Kenya. But the endemic species that are there are absolutely amazing. The Gilletta baboon, Ethiopian wolf, the bushbuck, ibex, nyala, all these amazing species that really only live in certain regions. The Ethiopian wolf resides just on one plateau in the Bali Mountains, and there are between 450, 500 of those. They're just there. That's it. So that's pretty incredible. For birders, there's over 800 species, so it's really close behind Uganda. And then, of course, the Omo Valley tribes. And the thing that always impresses me when I'm in Ethiopia and really has stuck with me since the first time I went in 2008 was the sites in the north, especially in Lalibela, are living historical sites. They're still in use. So this would be like if the pyramids were still part of an active society, if people were still using Petra. So you're walking through these subterranean churches and there's priests and nuns and pilgrims, and it makes it really powerful. There's candles burning, there's frankincense. The monks are chanting in the church language Ge'ez. It's pretty incredible. Also, internal air transfers are pretty readily available. There's scheduled flights. The air network is expanding. Really soon they're launching flights to Robe outside of the Bali Mountains, which is great. This background picture on the slide is the Bali Mountains. The view from the lodge is unbelievable. So let's get started on destinations. Addis is the arrival city. It's kind of smack dab in the middle of the country. Airport, downtown hotels. The Mercado is the second largest open air market in Africa. I think the first largest is probably in Nigeria somewhere. There are some airport hotels down in this area. So Addis is pretty easy to get around except for the traffic. They're doing tons and tons of construction right now. I mean, it's crazy. The Chinese are building a subway system, an above-ground rail system that's going to go to the coast to Djibouti. They just opened a toll highway. It's interesting. It's a very interesting time right now in Addis. Great food, excellent food. This picture is from one of the traditional Ethiopian restaurants that has live music. It's really fun. It's a cool vibe. They're well done. They're not cheesy. I really enjoy going to them. They have music and dancing, and the food is very good. There's also excellent Italian food. Addis is a pretty cool city. I really enjoy it. The Sheraton is the top choice for luxury lodging. This is not a normal Sheraton. It's pretty over the top. That room is a standard room. There's also, of course, the crazy high-end presidential suites. It's beautiful. It's really cool. It's also really expensive. But for high-end clients, it's a great way to start and end the trip because the accommodations throughout Ethiopia can be quite rustic. Radisson Blue is available also, great value, has some nice Ethiopian touches. There's a really great spa in the hotel that is the project of one of Ethiopia's top women entrepreneurs. I had a friend who did a treatment there on our trip in September, and she said it was great. The Hilton is kind of the old mainstay. I was there last year in May, and it actually needs a little bit of love for the price. It's not great. I would probably use the Radisson now, but it's there. The bar and restaurant, it's kind of cool. Has a very cool expat vibe, so that's kind of fun. And then the Jupiter Hotel. You'll see a lot in Travel Ethiopia's itineraries for day rooms and transit. It's a really great value. The service is good. The rooms are totally fine. It's a really good price point. That picture, which of course I've now just, there. Those are Gilletta baboons in the Simien Mountains. And this, I took this picture hiking in September. This is a typical scene. It is mind-boggling. It's amazing. So let me go forward here. I'm going to click these and then go through them. Bear with me. Okay, so Samrawit, an Ethiopian businesswoman who has Ethiopian and international degrees in tourism and journalism, founded Travel Ethiopia in 1994. So it's a really well-established company, 35 employees. We have full team of guides on staff, and Samrawit is really dedicated to women entrepreneurship and women in tourism, and we were the first company to employ female guides in Ethiopia. We have a full fleet of Toyota cruisers and high ace minibuses for transfers. We own all of our own camping kit. There's adventure camping kit and Meru style. I'll show you images of those later. We use the Meru tents and the Omo, and the adventure dome tents are for trekking in the Simiens and some of our other trekking destinations. We do a lot of VIP travel, so really high-level security trips. Hillary Clinton has a organization in Ethiopia, so we work on a lot of her travel. So there's definitely the capability of some pretty VIP travel arrangements. So some things to remember. Accommodations are pretty basic. They're improving dramatically and quickly. Excuse me, I was really impressed this last time. The private hotels are comfortable, they're clean, they're just fine. This is not a destination that travelers go to for accommodations. Travel Ethiopia guides escort trips as requested, and then because of the way Ethiopia is set up, and also to provide jobs, local guides who are specialists in that particular region, in Lalibela, in Gondar, join and do local guiding. High altitude, I've mentioned that, and definitely conservative culture. It's a very religious culture, and I highly, highly recommend that you tell your clients, especially the women travelers, to keep their head covered in the churches and to wear long pants and just be really respectful. We definitely saw some people who weren't that way, and it just makes a really negative vibe. There's Samrawit, the founder, and Yulia, who some of you will know, is in the lower right-hand corner. She is our U.S. Team lead for sales and consulting. She's awesome, totally fluent in English, really switched on. Asafa is there in the lower left. He's one of our senior-most guides. He's worked with Samrawit since the beginning of the company and is probably one of the most well-read, amazing, just walking encyclopedia type people that I've ever been guided by. We have a local guide who is a deacon there on the left in Lalibela, and we just toured with him in September. It was pretty awesome to have really inside access. All the priests in the churches know him. It was a very different experience than just having a standard historical guide, cultural guide. So let's start in the north. There's Axum. Axum is the ancient capital of Ethiopia, and there's a lot of lore and kind of history and myth involved in the story of Ethiopia. The Queen of Sheba is reportedly from Axum, and her ruined palace is there. This is also the home of the Ark of the Covenant, according to the Ethiopians. If anyone's interested, I highly recommend you read The Sign and the Seal. It is incredible. I will send information on that later. It's also home to the stone stela. So any of you who are interested in kind of ancient cultures, and for your clients who have traveled to other destinations, especially Latin America, the Inca and the Aztec and the Maya, it's really fascinating. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So there's the stela. It's pretty impressive to think that these were erected between the 1st and the 3rd centuries, and they're massive. The scale's kind of hard to tell on this, but you can see that little tin guard shack. Pretty impressive. So I think Axum is a good place to start because it's the most ancient. However, if time is of the essence, it seems that Axum is one of the places in the north that is taken out first. And I think that's okay. It's not quite as powerful in terms of experience as some of the other sites, especially Lalibela, but it lays the groundwork for the trip, which is important. Then heading to the Simien Mountains. The Simiens are absolutely spectacular. It's a very interesting park. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's on the threatened list for UNESCO, and it's very interesting. There is a population, a significant population, over 20,000 people live inside the park. Unlike other destinations in Africa where people like Burundi, where the Batwa were removed from the park, in the Simiens, the population stays in the park. So you definitely see people. However, it still feels really wild. It's the home to the Gilletta baboon. Great trekking and hiking. I recommend that everyone have their travelers visit the Simiens. It's really accessible. It's paved all the way from Gondar except for the last about 20 kilometers, and they don't have to be super fit to do the trekking. We did a day hike that I would say most people could do. You are at 10,000 feet, so that is over 10,000, so that is an issue, but it's a pretty amazing spot. There's the view at sunrise. So day treks are available from Simien Mountain Lodge. The Simien Lodge is down here, kind of in the lower left, and then these gray dotted lines are trekking trails. So a couple options. Here's Rashdashen, the highest peak in the Simiens and one of the highest peaks in Africa. There are multi-day trekking itineraries that we fully kit. A chef goes along, guides, park rangers, all of that, and then there are just day treks available. Really, really crazy people who really like hiking and trekking, not me, can hike from the Simiens all the way to Axum. It's possible. That would be a pretty incredible adventure. I'll let someone else do that. There's the Simien Lodge on the left, and just some really beautiful vistas. It's pretty spectacular. And of course, the Gilletta baboon. It looks like it went to a hairstylist from the 80s and got its blonde locks crimped. They're really cool. And I have to say, having chimp trekked in Uganda and at Mahale at Greystoke and gorilla trekked in Uganda and Rwanda. This is a pretty amazing primate experience. There are no permits involved. There are very few regulations. The baboons, which are actually monkeys, are really tolerant of people, and you can get quite close, a really safe distance. So from the perspective of photography, it is incredible. There just aren't that many tourists. We sat with the baboons for about an hour and a half. It was remarkable. So for people who are interested in primates and endemic species, it's really cool. Of course, local village visits, and the Simian Lodge is working closely with the local villages to make sure that they benefit from tourism, because as we all know, that really makes a big difference. And then the Simian Lodge is the highest lodge in Africa and has the highest bar, so you have to be careful how much wine you drink, because at 10,000 feet, it hits you. This is the mobile camping kit that we use for trekking. It's a, I believe, Dutch brand. Beautiful, really comfortable bedroll. They bring hot water in the morning. It's very nice. So that's what we would use for trekking in the Simiens. Now, heading down to Lalibela, my favorite place in Ethiopia. Is absolutely amazing. This is one of the subterranean churches. There are 11 monolithic subterranean churches in Lalibela and UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's a really cool museum that opened a couple years ago that they took a lot of the relics out of the churches, and now they're being preserved properly. We do private touring with specialist guides. There's also a really cool market, a weekly market, I believe on Saturdays in Lalibela that we went through with our guide. That was very cool, really, really impressive, very vibrant, really friendly people. It was beautiful. I think that Lalibela is one of the most special places in terms of religious travel. I don't think your travelers have to be religious to enjoy it at all, but like I said, it's so fascinating that it is actually a living historical site. This picture I took right before we were blessed by the priest. Our guide, who is a deacon, is there on the right, and he asked us if we wanted to be, which of course we all did, just for good measure, right? And so really cool. The priests are great. They're interactive. They have great senses of humor. I love that this priest is on his cell phone in front of the church. Like I said, I was there the first time in 2008. The same priests are still there. It's their lifetime duty to guard the churches and the holiest of holies. Really cool experience. They're all open to the public. And like I said, they're living historical sites. This area right here is called Bethlehem, which is where the communion is prepared. So you can see smoke coming out of that door on the left. So they're in there cooking the bread for communion. And there's some of the priests and pilgrims gathering out front. So the churches are split into two groups. You can see on the map there by the River Jordan that runs through the middle. And we usually do morning and afternoon visits. The churches are closed midday. So you kind of have a good split and a good break. Like I said, they're living sites. So things are going on all the time. It's pretty incredible. We recommend that your clients wear tennis shoes and shoes that are easy to get on and off, because what happens is a shoe man is hired to watch your shoes, and he carries your shoes throughout and helps you get them on and off. And you go inside the churches sock-footed, which is why you want that extra pair of socks. And then, you tip him a small amount at the end. Women need to cover their heads with a scarf. Please no shorts or tank tops or anything that they would find offensive. Lodging. Lalibela, I think, has some of the better accommodations. This is Lalibela Lodge, where President Bush Sr. stayed, which they're very proud of. They have pictures. It was very cute. That was the first thing they told us when we checked in. Your president stayed here. It's really cute. You know what? It's totally fine. It's very comfortable. The service was great. They were so sweet. Food in the restaurant was good. The rooms have kind of that stone wall, little sitting areas, have a really nice balcony or a veranda, lots of hot water on demand. The water can be an issue in Lalibela. We were there during the rainy season, so it wasn't an issue. But if your clients are traveling during the dry season, there are water shortages. So that is something to bear in mind. Lalibela is incredibly safe. Ethiopia is incredibly safe. Your clients can walk in the town. They'll have children come up to them and practice their English, but I was never asked for money. I was never harassed. It's great. It's very comfortable. Tukul Village is another option. The rooms are also quite comfortable, Ethiopian style. This is good for groups because it's a little bit bigger, 24 rooms. They have a restaurant on site that was very good. The other property, which I will send you guys some information on in the follow-up, I just didn't get good pictures of it, and their website is not great, is called Mountain View, which you'll definitely see in a lot of the itineraries. I found the rooms at Tukul Village and Lalibela Lodge to be much, much nicer. The view from Mountain View Lodge is absolutely incredible. It literally is hanging on the edge of the precipice overlooking the lowlands in Lalibela. But the restaurant and bar are open to the public, and I kind of prefer to have travelers stay at the Lalibela Lodge, which is next door, and your clients can just walk over and have sundowners or do dinner there. And I think that works really, really well. On to Gondar. Gondar is also a former capital of Ethiopia, more recent in the 1600s. It was established by Emperor Fasilides, and it's a really fascinating place. On the left, you see a picture there of the royal enclosure, which each of the emperors and their sons had palaces there, and they range in style from Moorish. There are some with kind of an Indian influence. It's pretty incredible. This is not a living site. No one lives there. But touring them, it's really beautiful. It's very cool. It's really otherworldly. And then on the right is the Debre Birhan Selassie Church, which is one of the only remaining original churches. There are really old churches in Ethiopia, but in the north, most of them were destroyed by the Sudanese dervishes in the 1880s. So you can actually see, on this picture you can't tell, but your travelers will learn to identify the old style of painting and the newer style of painting, kind of post-1800s. Especially in that region, it's different. The faces on the cherubs look different. So this church is very cool. The history of it is very, very special. The Ethiopians are really proud of it. The baths, which are still used during Timkat, the Epiphany celebration in January, are also in Gondar. This picture is from September, so there's no water. However, the water is the bath is filled with water from the river. It takes about 2 weeks to fill the bath, and that's probably, I would guess, maybe like 10 feet deep where you see the stairs on either side. So they fill the bath and perform the Epiphany celebration there in January, which is pretty incredible. Any time of the year, it's a really, really beautiful place. There were lots of birds, and the light is just absolutely beautiful. It's a very serene spot, and we usually end a Gondar tour there. So another shot of the royal enclosure. A typical day for your travelers touring in Gondar would be starting at the royal enclosure. We have lunch at a great local restaurant for Ethiopian sisters run. It's very cool, excellent food, very hygienic. And then afternoon at the church and the baths. And something we did, which was very cool, is we stopped at the Dashin Brewery on the way out of town, and we were actually there for New Year's Day, and so they had a big celebration, and all the young people were out at the brewery and the beer gardens. But this is a traditional brewery that has been certified by the Germans for its brewing methods, and they have a really beautiful beer garden, picnic tables, and for your travelers who are interested in beer, it would be a great stop at the end of the day. There are a few accommodation options, including government hotels in Gondar. We stayed at the Myleko Lodge. Really cute, very nicely done. It's owned by an Ethiopian who spends part of her year in the U.S. And the decor, as you can see, is really nice. It's really comfortable. Hot water on demand. It's a new property. It just opened, I want to say maybe in July. So there are a few kinks that they're working out, but the manager was on site, was very attentive. It's good. It's very solid. It's actually one of the nicest properties, I think. Then continuing south to Lake Tana, really important area historically in Ethiopia. The lore, the history, is that the Ark of the Covenant was taken to Lake Tana and hid in some of the monasteries on the islands when it was under threat. You can see in that top picture on the right, that's one of the traditional reed boats. They're still in use. The bottom photo is from one of the monasteries on the islands. They're circular buildings, very interesting. The distance between Gondar and Lake Tana is just about a 3-hour drive on paved roads. So we started this presentation in Aksum. However, it's also very common for your clients to arrive in Addis overnight, fly to Bahir Dar on Lake Tana, and start there. They can do the lake tour and the island monasteries and then drive to Gondar, and it's a very scenic, nice drive. Of course, the Blue Nile Falls is also just outside of Bahir Dar and Lake Tana. This was taken in the season when the dam is closed, so the water levels weren't quite as high. I didn't visit on this last trip, but the water in September is just rushing. The Kariftu Resort and Spa is one of the options on Lake Tana. There are quite a few new hotels opening. This is very traditional style with fabrics and stone, and it is a little dark and damp because of all the stone, but it's also very cool. So if you have clients that are looking for something just a little more kind of modern and hotelish, those options exist and are just fine. This is definitely a more unique option. It's all inclusive. Their spa was beautiful, really, really impressive. Then we're going to head to the south to the Rift Valley lakes, which are this area here, head down to the Omo Valley, and then the Bali Mountains National Park. Now, for logistics purposes, your clients would depart Addis, and if they're driving to Bali, probably overnight en route at Lake Lungano, and then continue into the Bali Mountains. This is all paved until you get to the base of the Bali Mountains, and then it's inside the park. It's just dirt track. There is a flight launching to the Bali Mountains, which will go into the airstrip in Robe. Here's Lake Lungano. So it'll cut out the driving, which will be really, really nice. However, if your clients have the time, I do really recommend a stop in Lake Lungano. If they're birders, it is great for birding. And also, it's really scenic. It's really pretty. I took this just after kind of in the middle of a huge rainstorm, but it's really beautiful. It's a great stopover point on the way to the Omo or to the Bali Mountains. And I find that Ethiopia, touring in Ethiopia can be pretty intense, and it can be tiring. So I like a night or two on Lake Lungano just to chill out. It's a coffee-colored lake. It's really high in mineral content, and because of that, it's bilharzia-free. So it's totally safe to swim in. I went swimming in it. I'm just fine. The birding's great. The accommodations there are really quite quaint and really cute. So I think I think it's a really good option, at least for a night, if not two, for people just to kind of relax en route. The Bali Mountains. I had no idea what to expect with the Bali Mountains, and I was absolutely, completely blown away. I feel like the Simien Mountains, I don't know why I knew what to expect, but they were what I expected. Really beautiful, amazing. The baboon experience was incredible, but the Bali Mountains are really, really special. The Simiens Plateau is the home to the Ethiopian wolf. The plateau runs at about 12,000 to 15,000 feet. Man, it's high. You can feel it. The air is very thin up there. Like I said, it was about 4 degrees Celsius when we were there and hailing. It was so cold. But I was really surprised at the wildlife. The wildlife is excellent. You should be cautious to sell Ethiopia as a wildlife destination because, like I said earlier, it does not have the numbers and the saturation that a traditional safari destination has. However, for the endemics, it's absolutely incredible. Coming out of Robe, your clients can do a guided walk to view Mountain Nyala, which was spectacular. We saw Mountain Nyala, Menelix, bushbuck. What else did we see? Probably 3 or 4 antelope species. It was pretty beautiful, and the flora is great. So that's a very cool thing. So that's a good stop when your travelers get right into the park. And then they do check in at the park gate and begin the drive up the plateau. And on top of the plateau is kind of game viewing, and we saw klipspringer, and then of course the Ethiopian wolf. Given a several-day stay in the area, your clients will probably see the wolf. It's very, very likely. We saw 4 on just the drive in. The next morning on the way out, we didn't see any, but we did have pretty good sightings. The people who were staying at the lodge with us had an absolutely incredible sighting where they saw a wolf hunting. They hunt rats and moles in the ground. So hunting a rat, one of the 2 golden eagles that are nesting on the plateau swooped down, grabbed the rat, the wolf pulled on it, the eagle pulled on the rat, and eventually the wolf got the rat. They got photos of it and everything. It was absolutely amazing. And really, there's no one else up there. So it's pretty incredible. Great hiking, incredible birding. And then the Harena Forest is one of the last protected forests in Ethiopia. Harena Forest, it's beautiful. This is the Bali Mountain Lodge. 8 rooms. They're wood and stone chalets, ensuite showers, fireplaces for heating. It's very eco-friendly. It's built out of hay bales, and they have a little viewing window in the room. It kind of reminds me of Baines Camp in Botswana, where you can see that the camp is built out of the recycled cans. This lodge has funding and is underwritten by AWF, so that's part of their whole eco thing. It's pretty well done. The service was great. It's a Kenyan guy who manages it. He is getting his PhD presently from University of Utah, I believe, in ornithology, and he's studying climate change and the effects on the birds in the Bali Mountains. So great birding walks. The food was very solid. That's the view from the room, and the rooms, they're really, really nice, really pretty. You can see the viewing window there with the hay bale. That upper left-hand photo is the view from my room. It's incredible. There is a Nyala, and there's the Ethiopian wolf. That's my picture from the trip, and that was even during really poor weather conditions. The best time for viewing the wolf is kind of November, December. So something to bear in mind for people who are really keen on game viewing. The top photo is from our walk, our walking trip in the area where the Mountain Nyala are. The left-hand lower photo is the Harena forest, and the right lower is the Menelix bushbuck. Really very scenic, really incredible. Then continuing from Bali down into the Omo Valley. There are flights from Addis down to Arba Minch, which is kind of considered the gateway there to the lower Omo, which does then avoid this long drive from Addis. You can have your clients stop over at Lake Lungano, which if they're keen birders, I would have them do. And then, of course, they can fly back. This is a good map showing kind of the routing. Mago is where the Mercy tribes are. Turmi is where the Hammer and some of the other tribes are, and really good markets in the Turmi area. The Buska Lodge, which is kind of a cute rustic lodge, is there in Turmi. Turmi is also a great base. We do a lot of our camping there. And of course, if you have groups, private charters are not an issue in and out. The tribes are really very colorful, and each one is incredibly different. Guides explain the jewelry and the body paint and scarification. There's really cool markets. Different seasons have different traditions, and it's pretty particular, so I advise that you work really closely with Yulia and the team in Addis to determine if your clients are going to the Omo Valley, what their interests are, what their goals are, what kind of interactions they want to have, what level of accommodations they're looking for. Not that there's that many options, but whether they want to camp or do the lodge. The drives are long and the roads are rough. There's no way around it. Even if you fly your clients in and out of Arba Minch, I feel like the Omo Valley is really one of the very remote places left. Probably parts of northern Uganda, up in Kadepo, the Omo Valley, the Kuneni, Cocoveld region in Namibia. I mean, these are the places that are just really, really wild still. They need to understand that. The little Mercy children, very sweet, playing games there. This is the Meru style tents that we use in the Omo. I recommend camping. I think it's great. Private chef, we have 2 awesome chefs on staff that have worked with Samrawit really since the inception of the company. Cook simple, great food, and I think probably most of us today recommend that their clients do some camping. So I think it's a really great option. Comfortable shower, full bathroom. The tents are really well done. Sitting area, tablecloth dining. So it's a really nice option for people. So suggested itineraries, kind of getting to the end here. There's some options. Historic North, for travelers who are just interested in the history, and you can do the wildlife element because the Simiens are really easy to add on from Gondar as short as 1 night. They can do a day hike and visit the baboons with a 1-night stay if time is of the essence, or they can do multi-night trips or trekking. That can be added into the historic north with Lake Tana, Gondar, Lalibela, and Aksum very easily. It's a really nice comprehensive trip. Then if you add the Bali Mountains, I would suggest a minimum of 3 nights. I felt like there was enough to do to stay for 4 nights in terms of game viewing, hiking, birding in the area, but I would plan on a minimum of 3 nights. Especially now that the flights are available, 3 nights is manageable. Harar is, I didn't cover Harar on this trip, on this webinar. There just wasn't time, but it is essentially kind of due east of Addis. Very different feel, very different culture, kind of more of the Swahili culture that a lot of us are used to, the Muslim culture. also famous for its coffee, the Hyena Man, and the Walled City. So that is possible for a 2-night add-on in terms of culture and history. And then, of course, the Omo Valley can be sold as a standalone, kind of a 8 to 10-day trip, or it can be combined with the north and shortened slightly. The Gibraltar region, Samrawit just returned from right before I came in September. She was blown away. This is an area in northeastern Ethiopia, kind of to the east of Aksum, where the churches are built into the cliffs rather than subterranean, and you use rope ladders to climb up to the monasteries and the churches. There are 2 lodges in the area that are very comfortable and actually quite boutique, if I can say that. Really great for photographers, photography groups, clients that you have that you're looking for that next amazing place to send them. They've been to southern Tanzania, they've been on a walking safari in Zambia, they've been to Zimbabwe, they've done Namibia. This is the next place that they should go. Very up and coming, really off the radar. It oddly is pretty accessible. There's a flight into the region. And then the Danakil Depression. I haven't been. Johan van Zyl went last year. So if anyone has questions about the Danakil specifically, talk to Johan because he was there. I know he loved it and said it was really amazing. It's one of the lowest places on Earth. It is not uncommon for the temperatures to be upwards of 120 degrees. It's not really high on my list because of that, but it is a great add-on for really adventurous travelers. For people who are really looking for something spectacular to do, Gibraltar, the Danakil Depression, and the Bali Mountains would be absolutely amazing. That would be a really phenomenal tour. I love this picture. You can see that poor donkey there is carrying that bale of hay. This is typical traffic in Addis, so I do recommend that we take advantage of the widespread internal flights that are available for your clients. They generally run smoothly and on time, especially to the sites in the north like Gondar and Lalibela and Bahir Dar. Every once in a while we run into delays and problems, but almost everyone that's on this call today has the level of travelers that we would have a private guide going with them everywhere. So the guide is dealing with that, assisting with check-in, all of that. So it runs pretty smoothly. And there are flights that connect those northern historic sites without hub and spoke back to Addis, so that's nice. There is a new flight going to the Bali Mountains. I'll send you that information as well. And on certain days, there are flights, like I said, into Arba Mensch to cut the drive time on the Omo. We can do charter flights. There are caravans and Cessnas available. There are helicopters as well. From time to time, we have really high-end clients who base themselves in Addis at the Sheraton and just do day visits. I don't know. Sure, yes, that can be done. I think that it's worth staying in the sites, but for people who need that higher level of accommodation and luxury, that's definitely an option. A lot of the roads in the north are newly paved. Like I said, the Chinese are doing a lot of road works. So generally speaking, road conditions are pretty good in the north. Inside the national parks and in the Omo, it is dirt track and it can be really rough. Ethiopia does have a tropical monsoon climate, so the rains, when it rains, are absolutely torrential, and it does take the toll on the roads. So thank you for taking the time. I'll answer some questions. If there are questions, I'll check that just now. This is the baths in Gondar. So as you can see in the afternoon light, they're really beautiful. All right, let me see here. Questions? Questions? Anyone? I don't know why it's not letting me get to the questions. We have recorded this. Someone asked me a question, so I can try to get to the question there. Oh, sorry guys. It's not letting me pull up the question tab. Hold on, sorry. Okay, I don't know why it's not letting me get to the question tab. I know that Tad is on the line somewhere and can probably help me with this. Tad, I just unmuted you. How do I get to the questions?
It's on your right hand.
Yeah, it was there earlier, and now it's not there.
Just make sure it's not minimized.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, sorry guys.
Respond via email to all the questions that have been.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll go through the questions when I do find them, and answer those for you. And what I will do also is I'm going to send you guys information, some reading suggestions, some details on flights, some suggested itineraries. All of that will come through. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'm leaving for Kenya and Tanzania on Saturday, but I'm here this week, and I'm going to copy Yulia and Samrawit on the follow-up email. Yulia is attending WTM right now, so she is not in the office. They, of course, do have staff covering her, but she won't respond immediately. And Samrawit is actually traveling in the States right now, visiting her sister. So they are on the road. However, I'll copy them so you have their information as well, and we'll get that email out to you shortly, and I'll go through and follow up with any of those questions that I wasn't able to answer. Oh, I found them. Wait, don't go anywhere. Yay. Okay. Someone asked if there was only one place you could go in Ethiopia, what would it be and why? I would go to Lalibela. I feel like Lalibela is the heart of Ethiopia. Like I said, it's a living destination. It's a living historical site. It is absolutely incredible, and I feel it's so unique. The webinar will be posted on the Kusini Collection website. If you go to kusinicollection.com under multimedia, it will be up there. We'll put it up in the next day or two. If anyone wants it, Linda, I see your question. If anyone wants it, I will send it to you via Dropbox as well. Can you go barefoot inside the churches? I wouldn't. I'd wear socks. I would wear socks. Are there other transportation options for trekking in the Simiens? There's some mountain biking available. There are the Ethiopian Cadillac, the mule. Some of the trekking options do have mule support, so that is good. Bet is a good Hebrew word. What does that mean? It means church, or I guess temple. All of the churches, Bet, Georges. Jenny, do the living sites mean that there are services? Yes, there are services that take place every single day in the churches in Lalibela. Most of them can be attended. They start at 4 in the morning. So you'd have to have a pretty pretty dedicated traveler to do that. I was there, last time I was there, no, first time I was there was during Lent. And so they had a lot of services going on throughout the day. And I got up early, but maybe like 6:30 in the morning, and went in and watched the priests chant and prepare for the service. And that was pretty amazing. So yes, absolutely. The services, most cases, are open to travelers. We have full pre-departure information for the travelers to Ethiopia. All Travel Ethiopia does documents on arrival, but also pre-departure documents. Women are allowed in almost all of the churches, not all of them. And there technically speaking is not a photography fee. However, the priests have baskets in the churches that they definitely expect you to leave a couple of birr. Now remember, $1 is 20 birr. So they have 1 birr coins. So, you know, it's a good idea for your clients to have a pocket full of 1 birr coins when they go into the churches, so they can just leave something. And if clients are coming with pretty hardcore photo gear, I had a small tripod with me and just, you know, a Canon SLR, and that didn't seem to be an issue. However, if it is a photography tour, we probably do need to get photo permits in advance, and there is a fee. It's not exorbitant, and it can be arranged, but that's best to be done in advance. Omo Valley circuit, I would really, with the driving distances, you're looking at a minimum of about a week. Flying them in and out does cut time off, and depending on how deep into the Omo they want to go, and what else you're combining it with, you could go a bit shorter, but it's kind of a 6-night minimum. For a really comprehensive Ethiopia tour, for a first-timer, you're probably looking at a 2-week, 10 to 12 day if they're combining both destinations. I really recommend 2 nights in Lalibela, 2 nights in Gondar, a night at Lake Tana. So it kind of just depends. I will send suggested itineraries out so you can see the logistics and the pacing. Really, the only 1-night recommendation would probably be the Simiens Mountains, unless your clients want to do some trekking. The snake question, I don't know. I'm sure that there are snakes. I didn't see any, but there must be. U.S. citizens can get visas on arrival at the airport. That is not a problem. Tom, if you're still on, family travel, I was blown away. We saw so many families traveling. A lot of them were diplomatic families out of Addis, but with young kids. And the Ethiopians love children. They are super friendly. I was thinking I could easily take my 4-year-old son. Some of the drives are longer, so that's something to bear in mind. But I think it's actually pretty family friendly in terms of a more well-traveled family. A lot of the accommodations had adjoining rooms, like all the big hotels in Addis have adjoining rooms. Most of the properties have space, have bigger bedrooms. I thought it was quite good for family travel. Local birr, local currency is the best to use. They don't really want US dollars. I think, what else? Janelle, if you're still there. I have flown Ethiopian internationally, and if your clients arrive into Addis internationally on Ethiopian, there's a flight from Washington Dulles, there's a flight from JFK, they do get a significant rate reduction on the internal flights within Ethiopia. So we really push for that. Ethiopian is just fine. Their rates are very competitive. I think it's fine. I personally have SkyTeam, so I flew into Nairobi on KLM, and then I flew Ethiopian from Nairobi to Addis, and so I was able to secure the discounted internal flights that way, and that worked fine. Sarah, you do not always have to hub and spoke in and out of Addis. However, to combine the north with the Omo, you do have to route through Addis. Business class, Tom, on internal flights, not most of the planes, no. They're flying Canada regional jets, Bombardiers, and there aren't business class seats, to my recollection. Not on most of the legs, at least. You do, within the national parks, have an armed game ranger. In the Simian Mountains, in the Bali Mountains, our game ranger was not armed, I don't think, for our walking trip, but it was antelope, so I don't know that they would need to be armed. What are the first regions that you would cut from an itinerary if you have to shave days off? Like I said, Aksum, not because it's not significant. You could even do one night in Aksum, but I would really always leave Lalibela, and I find that Gondar is also quite significant. Lake Tana and Bahir Dar are such a great gateway, but that can also be taken off. Perfect. Great. Kim, last question. I have not stayed at the Raz Hotel, so I don't have any firsthand experience there, but we can find out for you. So everyone, thank you so much. I will let you go. My photos from the trip are on the Kusini Collection Facebook page. If you need photos for marketing, please contact me, and that's the purpose of those images, is for you guys to market the trips. Like I said, I'll be sending out a follow-up email with itineraries and suggestions, and please just shout if you need anything at all. This is a destination that you guys should be selling. It's very up and coming. It works really well for most demographics, and well-traveled people will find this destination to be absolutely magical. So thank you so much, and I will stop the recording now, and we'll get this up on the website ASAP.